is the Paleolympic brain. It is the home of some of our unconscious scripts inherited from our education, which regulate our life. There where the reptilian brain was aimed at the survival of the individual, the Paleolympic brain is responsible for the survival of the group. Now, scientists used to believe that in evolutionary terms, it developed with the emergence of the first mammals who decided to live in herds. That is not correct, however, as it is also found with other vertebrates. Besides the question of its origins, its purpose is clear. Living together maximized the chances of survival of a group. However, social life needed to be regulated. In order to do so, the Paleolympic brain defines the position of the individual towards the group. This translates into two key concepts that are regulated here: our self-confidence and our trust in others. So self-confidence and trust. We put them on two axes. In the middle, we will find assertiveness. Here, an individual finds balance. He or she doesn't have too much self-confidence or trust, neither does he or she lacks it. Now wait a minute, too much self-confidence? How can someone have too much confidence? Well, it's all a matter of words or semantics, if you will. With the neurocognitive and behavioral approach, we define a tipping point where confidence in oneself turns into, I am entitled to more than others. This belief that we are better for whatever reason, it may be because we have more money, better looks, a bigger car, whatever. That belief is for us too much self-confidence. Once we agree on the words that we speak about the same concepts, we can work with them. So in the middle, we have assertiveness. Here, people can say yes to things they want and refuse things they don't want. Too much self-confidence is what we call dominance. Now, dominance is not, as one may think, about yelling and overpowering the other. In its mild form, it's all about manipulation and seduction. The dominant person can be very charming and nice. The thing is, it's not genuine. They do so to obtain favors, to get what they want. For the dominant person, others are evaluated in terms of utility. They will use them to obtain their goal, whatever that may be. In its most extreme form, excessive self-confidence leads to a narcissistic personality disorder. A lack of self-confidence we call submissiveness. Submissiveness is a real burden. Whenever something turns out well, they feel they were lucky. If something goes wrong, the submissive person will feel it's their fault. If you compare that to a dominant person, every success they feel is their doing, and failure is always due to others. The dominant person is totally incapable of admitting mistakes or taking responsibility, as in their opinion, they are so superior to everyone else. In its most extreme form, submissiveness will lead to melancholic depression. On the other axis, the one of trust in others, we will call someone who's lacking trust to be marginal. You probably heard about conspiracy theories. Did you know that 4% of the population of the United States actually believes that shape-shifting reptilian people control our world by taking on human form and control our governments? This is a good example of what marginality looks like. In its extreme form, it turns into paranoia. Too much trust in others we will call actuality. Have you ever received a mail from people claiming to need your help to free large sums of money, of which you would receive your share, of course? Now, over the years, this one has known many versions, from a bank to the lottery and even political dissidents. I once received a mail supposedly from the daughter of Colonel Gaddafi, the ex-dictator of Libya. These, of course, are scams. An assertive person wonders who would ever fall for that. Well, actually, actual people do. They have an excessive trust in others, which leads to gullibility. The people sending out those mails know that. Their mail isn't intended for assertive people. They prey on the actuals among us. In its most extreme form, actuality becomes mystical delirium. The Paleolympic is quite an archaic structure of the brain. It can learn and evolve, however, it does so very slowly. Any person with a lack of self-confidence could testify. It's not something you can solve over the weekend. Any person claiming to be able to grow your self-esteem in a record time is a fraud. It is a physical impossibility. The Paleolympic brain cannot evolve that fast. It has never been observed until now. The only exception to this rule are traumatizing events like mugging or, heaven forbid, rape, which can shatter your self-confidence in seconds. However, a quick shift is always downwards, never upwards. We can recognize the reptilian brain is active because people react in three stress modes. When the Paleolympic brain is active, we will see people behaving in a very territorial way. It's all about power games. Above all, it's a dominant behavior that is the most problematic. It's actually quite easy to spot. It goes from peacock or macho behavior over bullying to all types of harassment. As said before, these people never question their own behavior and thus never learn. There is good news though. Just as in the animal kingdom, it is rare to find alpha males fighting to death over a female or a herd. They will try to impress and intimidate. Sometimes they will actually fight. However, fights usually don't last long. It's more probing and trying, checking out the strength of the other. Once it's established the other one is stronger, they will disengage. Why? Well, getting wounded is very dangerous. Even a small wound can get infected. Predators and prey alike need to be able to run as fast as they can, so they need to minimize dangerous situations. The Paleolympic brain works with the same logic. It tries to impress and intimidate. However, it is actually quite a coward. From the moment it feels firm resistance, it will try once, twice, now maybe 3 times, then it will disengage. This is great news for people having to deal with a dominant person in their surroundings, particularly when dominance is combined with marginality. Why, you ask? Well, this combination leads easily to jealousy, which can potentially ruin a happy relationship. So to summarize, the Paleolympic brain. This brain structure is responsible for the survival of the group and works around 2 axes, self-confidence and trust. When activated, the Paleolympic makes us quite territorial. We can become dominant, submissive, marginal, or actual. Our third brain structure is the neolimbic brain. I'm a huge fan of the neolimbic brain. It's a fascinating place, home to our deepest motivations and raw emotions. This is where our memory resides. Everything we experience in our lives will be recorded here, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's here where we are most of the time. I mean, this is the part of the brain that is usually running the show. It runs like an autopilot. It recognizes situations where we've already been through and immediately comes up with a set of standard operational procedures to deal with the situation at hand. Here lies everything we've ever learned. It deals with everything, from walking and talking, over driving and using a computer, to how to behave in public and all kinds of social codes you can imagine. It's highly efficient, as it will use the minimum necessary attention span to carry out tasks, which frees up attention to do other things at the same time. For example, let's say driving and having a conversation with the person next to you. Actually, any routine occupation that lets you wander off with your mind. Here you will find all the contradictions and paradoxes of our complex personalities. We are wonderful beings, capable of so much, yet limiting ourselves all the time. Basically, we can distinguish three layers of motivation. The first layer is fixed, partly formed through our genes and partly from our environment. Once we're only 3 months old, it will remain the same for the rest of our lives. These motivations give us energy and joy. They are also called intrinsic motivations. With the NBA, we have identified different types of motivation which lead to 8 different personality types. Now, every one of us has between 2 and 4 of these personalities. Sometimes they are very strong in presence, sometimes, however, they get covered up and almost disappear underneath the other layers. The second layer isn't fixed. It will continuously evolve and has no age limit to do so. Here we will find our likes and dislikes. They're also called extrinsic motivations. Extrinsic motivations aren't stable nor sustainable. They cost us energy and will fade if they don't meet success. Here we will find everything that our environment has given us, from our parents, brothers and sisters, over our teachers and friends, to movies, music, video games. Basically, this second layer is like a blueprint of the cultural influences we've been subject to. They push us to do what others expect from us, what is socially acceptable. Here lie also all our irritations, intolerances, and prejudices. The difference between the intrinsic and extrinsic motivations is basically the one with that little kid who has to clean his room. In the first scenario, he'll do that and will actually enjoy the cleaning itself. Yes, those kids do exist. In the second scenario, he will be cleaning because mommy told him to, or because daddy promised something sweet. Will that same kid do his homework because he likes it, or because otherwise he might get punished? And years later, will he go to law school because his dad is a lawyer, or will he pursue his dream of working with, let's say, animals? And when the time comes to find a job, will he choose the one with a fat paycheck, or the one where he loves the content? An important thing to know is that the first layer will motivate you regardless if you're great at doing what you do. Extrinsic motivations, on the contrary, don't last. The motivation from a raise, if it's substantial enough, will last 3 to 6 months maximum. As a business owner, if you have to give your people a raise every 6 months, you'll be out of business in no time. The choice between a fat paycheck and a career you love is a no-brainer from a motivational point of view. Still, a lot of people would go for the fat paycheck. This society we live in pushes us to compete and win all the time. We're primed, we're biased, we're programmed to live a life that others intended for us. The real question, though, is, underneath all that, what do you want? You, the real you, the 3 months old you, before everything else started to find a way into your limbic system. Why we should care? Happiness, fulfillment, joy. That's why. Otherwise, we'll just end up angry, frustrated, and bitter, faking to have a perfect life and being miserable inside. Okay, so much for intrinsic and extrinsic motivations. There is a third layer, though, a fascinating one. I'm talking about obsessions. I can hear you think, oh, obsessions, oh, I don't have those. That's nothing like me. Well, newsflash. I'm sorry to tell you, we all have them. Not one, but actually many. Don't believe me? Fine, be that way. Remember the first time you fell in love? Remember the feeling. Remember how you just couldn't get enough of the other person. You wanted to be together all the time, calling and texting each other all the time, seeing the other person's face everywhere. Well, that, my friend, is what we call an obsession. And the fact that you're aware of them. An obsession is a passion that has gone over its tipping point. Behind it lies a compensation mechanism for a void in our life. When displaying obsessive behavior, we're thinking all the time about something or someone. Everything we do related to our obsession is just too much. We can't get enough of it, and we'll never be satisfied. It's more than the usual suspects of drugs and alcohol. Think about workaholism, shopaholism, sex addiction, betting, stalking, fanatism, and extremism of all kinds. When they're not managed, obsessions can potentially ruin our lives and that of others. But most of all, even when they're mild, due to their compulsive nature, they just enchain us into a life of servitude, ever chasing that one thing that we can't get enough of. When obsessed, we're just not free. So to summarize, the neolimbic brain, this is our standby mode in which we operate most of the time. It is also the home of our memories. Everything we've been through remains here. And most of all, the neolimbic brain is the heart of our motivations, of which we distinguish 3 layers: our intrinsic motivations, our extrinsic motivations, and our obsessions. Last but far from least comes the prefrontal brain. This one is a marvel of evolution. It makes us, humans, unique, as no other living being has its brain structure the way we have it. Because, let's face it, everything we've seen so far, all 3 brain structures, are widespread in the animal kingdom. The reptilian and paleolimbic mode are so basic that using them puts us in a state where we have no connection anymore with our logical thinking abilities. On the other hand, it is true that in the neolimbic lies the essence of who we are as individuals, with our memories and motivations. Still, that doesn't make us human. Anyone who has a dog or animal will be able to testify that those animals have their own character traits, likes, dislikes, and motivations. So it is the prefrontal brain that makes us human. Not so much the fact of having one, as some of the more evolved mammals actually also have a prefrontal brain. I'm thinking here, for example, dolphins, dogs, elephants, and the other great apes. The size of their prefrontal brain is actually the normal size. Ours is just ridiculously huge. It's almost difficult to print, and it is this oversized prefrontal brain that makes us truly human. How? Well, remember our caveman from the reptilian brain, the one who was being hunted down by pack of wolves. Yes, him. Well, if you compare him with a cave bear, there is one thing that distinguishes both. Even though generations of cave bears lived for thousands of years in caves, never has a single one of them thought about decorating the place. I mean, putting a little paint on the walls, drawing some wild animals he's going to hunt. Okay, sure, bears can't paint. So what about the claws? Why haven't they used it to carve some nice patterns, or maybe just a signature type at the entrance to state the cave was theirs? Why? Prefrontal brain size, that's why. This prefrontal brain works like some kind of supercomputer on a totally unconscious level, drawing conclusions from all of the different sensorial inputs it gets, creating innovative combinations to come up with new ways to deal with the situation at hand. This way, the prefrontal mode is a champion of adaptation and creativity, especially suited for unknown and complex situations. As we saw before, the neolimbic brain works as some kind of autopilot, dealing with the world as we know it. It is the home of all our little habits and routines, which make us function very efficiently in our daily lives. So the prefrontal brain is the one dealing with new and complex situations. Let me correct that. The prefrontal brain should be the one dealing with new and complex situations, because no, it's not always the case. Let me give you a couple of examples of automatic mode when adaptive mode would have made a huge difference. 12 publishing firms turned down J.K. Rowling's first Harry Potter book. Decca Records turned down the Beatles in 1962. The Titanic. I think there's a world market for maybe 5 computers, said the IBM chairman in 1943. Who the hell wants to hear actors talk? That came from Warner Brothers in 1927. And Atari and HP turning down Steve Jobs' idea of a personal computer. Now, I could go on like this for hours. Whenever someone thought of something new, there has always been others unable to see further than what currently is, failing to see what could be. They stayed stuck in their limbic mode when what they should have done is switch to their prefrontal brain. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that when we use our limbic brain, we're not able to see further than what we already know, our existing experiences, hence the turning down of big opportunities. When we have to make decisions on new things, we should switch to our prefrontal brain. This one enables us to adapt, to change, and deal with complex decision-making. It doesn't ensure we'll take the right decision, nor does it mean we'll agree with any change just for the sake of adaptation. No. It only means we'll use all our knowledge and creativity to be able to see a possible future, and then make a decision, yes or no. This in contrast to the limbic brain, where we'll just reject the idea because it has never worked before. So the reaction of Warner Brothers, who wants to hear actors talk, it's a very good example of this. At this point in time, in 1927, all movies were mute. His limbic brain couldn't imagine anything else. His prefrontal brain would have been able to, and maybe he still would have decided not to go for it. Maybe because of financial reasons, high investments, but not because he couldn't imagine people not wanting to hear people talk. Idem ditto with the IBM chairman stating there was a world market of maybe 5 computers. His limbic brain wasn't able to project a world with computers no larger than a book and much more capacity than at that time. Of course, not all change is good. Neither is all resistance bad. Using our prefrontal brain when we need to helps us taking into account all the available information and taking the best possible decision based on that. Our prefrontal brain is also home to our creativity, intuition, spirituality, but also our adaptability. An indicator that our prefrontal brain is active is our emotions. We feel calm, serenity, in full control. We are on top of our game. This is the true land of possibility, right there behind our forehead, our prefrontal cortex, the marvel of evolution. So to summarize the prefrontal brain, this is the part of our brain which should switch on whenever we face complex situations or we need to adapt to new circumstances. Unfortunately, often we don't, which leads to resistance to change and bad decision making. So now that we went through the different brain structures and their function, let me present to you a typology for managers based on their dominant brain structure. Still, it's fair to say that there are patterns emerging in our behavior, indicating we're mostly active in one of them. So we have 4 brain structures: the reptilian, the paleolimbic, the neolimbic, and the prefrontal brain. Accordingly, we could distinguish 4 types of leaders: reptilian leader, paleolimbic leader, neolimbic leader, and prefrontal leader. Now let's have a look at each one of them and see what their characteristics are. So we start with the reptilian leader. The reptilian leader is dominated by stress. He's not proactive, he's reactive. He's in survival mode, running from one emergency to another, barely keeping his head above water. He's more a firefighter than anything else. We could distinguish 3 types of reptilian leaders with a fight, flight, and freeze response. Fighting reptilian leaders would be the aggressive type. Fleeing reptilian leaders would be all over the place. Freezing reptilian leaders, well, they wouldn't be much of a leader, terrified to take action, not taking any decisions. With the paleolimbic leader, it's another game that is being played. Here we're talking manipulative, deceitful power games. Paleolimbic leaders are territorial. They'll let you know when you're on their turf. We could distinguish 4 types of paleolimbic leaders. Dominant paleolimbic leaders are probably the worst. They think they are God's gift to the organization and feel entitled to all kinds of privileges. There where the fighting reptilian leader reacts to a stressful situation with aggression, here the dominant paleolimbic leader will initiate the aggression. He's the aggressor. He rules by fear and secretly enjoys it. In his eyes, everyone around him is incompetent or plain stupid. They are not afraid to yell, publicly humiliate others, or worse, intimidate, bully, or sexually harass their team. Marginal paleolimbic leaders are a real pain because basically they're paranoid. They don't trust anybody. They will micromanage their teams, not because they think they're better, like the dominant paleolimbic leader. No, it's more because, well, they got trust issues. The actual paleolimbic leader are something special. They want to be their team's best friend, and everyone has to get along with everyone. At first sight, this might seem like something great, but wait until one morning they start to discuss their sex life with you, or invite you to a naked sauna together. Actual paleolimbic leaders have a problem with boundaries. They don't realize they're getting too close, too invasive. They think they know what others want, what others need, and they'll provide it without being asked. It can become quite creepy at times. The submissive paleolimbic leader is something else, really. This leader is all about exchanging favors to get his team to do things. He's very involved and feels personally responsible for everything that goes wrong. He has a really hard time imposing his will and needs to bargain his way out. A lot of times he ends up doing work his team should be doing, not because he doesn't trust them as with the marginal paleolimbic leader, but because he lacks the skills to rally his team or impose his views. What we often see is a combination of dominant submissive leaders. These leaders are very dominant with their own team, but extremely submissive and servile with their own boss. One moment they crawl at the feet of their superior, next they are barking at their own troops. These leaders are like chess players, planning several moves ahead. They develop schemes, conspiracies, manipulating, trying to win favors, so they can slowly but surely raise on the hierarchical ladder. Their only interest is their own, even if that means scratching someone else's back. But don't be fooled, they only do that so you would be in their debt. Next is the neolimbic leader. The neolimbic, remember, is a siege of our emotions, of our personalities. Here we're entering the realm of authentic leadership. With neolimbic leaders, what you see is what you get. Their own personality will guide their decisions and style, and we can distinguish 8 of them. The neolimbic philosophical leader. Keywords here are optimism, curiosity, consensual. These leaders enjoy the simple life. They are flexible and can easily adapt to new challenges. They are usually stress-free, do things at their own pace. They like to involve their team and discuss items with them. They do well in stressful environments, where their calming presence has a positive influence on the team. The neolimbic innovative leader. With the innovative leader, obviously the focus is on innovation, abstraction, theories. They enjoy complexity, interdisciplinarity, having to develop new models. They're always a step ahead, already thinking about the next big breakthrough when you're still in awe with the current one. But they're not only active in the realm of models and theory. With their teams, they are very respectful leaders. They take responsibility and empower the people around them as well. They do great in research and development departments, or any department with a share of conceptualization. When leading a company, they might single-handedly revolutionize a whole industry thanks to their focus on innovation. Profit margins might not be the best with a focus on R&D, but they will for sure leave a legacy. The neolimbic animated leader. With the animated leader, you're in for a ride. These leaders thrive on change and strong sensations. They are very creative and have plenty of new ideas. The result of that is an ever-changing environment, a multitude of projects, often very diverse. People around them usually have a hard time keeping up with their pace. We're talking high energy, work hard, play hard environment. Even though it's exhausting for others, they are a real inspiration for their team, and their playfulness will bring a positive vibe to all projects. The neolimbic administrative leader. Here, playtime is over. The neolimbic administrative leader is about administration and safety. We're talking financial control, planning, tools, Excel sheets, reporting, and so on. These leaders are at their best in a number environment. They get a thrill out of procedures. Put them in a finance, insurance, or accounting environment, and they will love you for it. They're also great when it comes to safety and prevention. The neolimbic strategic leader. Now forget the numbers. Here comes a champion of people management. Neolimbic strategic leaders are both loyal to their organization and their team. They will listen to their team. They're looking for harmony, balance, which means they will mediate and actively solve problems if they arise. Great at organizing and coordinating, they will entrust their team, delegate tasks, empower their people, give training where necessary in order to unlock hidden potential. They will stand with their team, support them, make them grow and find the best in each and every single one of them. The Neolimbic competitive leader. With a competitive leader, you can forget the harmony. Here we're talking dogfight. If you didn't have to fight over something, that thing basically isn't worth having. So this leader will push their team in the ropes, demand the utmost and more, make them sweat, cry, and bleed. A victory has to be earned, conquered. It's a cult of the hero that dominates everything, and of course the leader himself is the ultimate example to be followed. He's not afraid of getting his hands dirty. It's do as I do. He will be in the line of fire, making sure his leadership is never questioned, because he's the best. The Neolimbic participative leader. Welcome to leadership with a human face. The Neolimbic participative leader is all about knowing its team, sharing and caring. This leader will do whatever it takes for its team. Support, training, encouragement. He will be the one cheering the successes of its team and the shoulder to cry on in hard times. It's leadership of kindness, where everyone is important. They thrive in an environment on a human scale. The Neolimbic supportive leader. The Neolimbic supportive leader is the portrait of the selfless leader. His sole purpose is to serve others. His team is more important than himself. He's the ultimate altruist, demanding for himself and tolerant toward others. Discreet, he will operate below the surface, helping others shine and always avoiding the spotlights for himself. Now last but not least is the prefrontal leader. The prefrontal leader is characterized by calm, serenity. He's curious by nature and will recognize opportunities when they present themselves. He'll be able to adapt to new challenges and understand the subtleties of complex situations. He will favor reflection over rushed decisions. He will listen to his team, but always be able to follow his own personal opinion without yielding to peer pressure. Their team will see them as wise or even enlightened, an example to follow. It's important to understand we're not active in one brain structure only. The dominant one is the Neolimbic mode, and within that Neolimbic mode we are a combination of several personality types. I gave you 8, but the truth is we are a combination of them, with 2 to 4 dominant ones. Now depending on the situation we can switch to the Paleolimbic, reptilian or prefrontal mode, but sooner or later we'll always switch back to our standby mode, which is the Neolimbic. Whenever the reptilian or Paleolimbic has become too dominant, it's a recipe for failure. Expect burnouts, people resigning, and probably even harassment lawsuits. Prefrontal leadership is needed in time of trouble, in times when adaptation and change are needed. So which type of leader are you? Care to share? Now this is one of my all-time favorite topics, leadership versus dominance. We've seen how the Paleolimbic is responsible for regulating the social position within groups. This has led to some individuals receiving privileges over others on topics as food and reproductive partners. Now look at these magnificent animals. What formidable leaders they are. Well, not quite, actually. When we take a closer look at the animal kingdom, we see how these power relations of dominance and submissiveness are not synonym of leadership. With elephants, the herd is led by an older female, which guides the group from one waterhole to another. She's the living memory of the group, and the others trust and respect her. The males live a solitary life and will join the group for reproduction only. The same is true with deers. One older female leads the herd from one green pasture to another. The males, again, are solitary beings who will only temporarily claim a herd for reproductive purposes during the rooting season, after which they disappear again. Now what about lions? They live a family life with a dominant male, so you would expect the male to be the one in charge, right? No, wrong again. Even though it is true the dominant male will stay with the pride at all times, until he gets evicted by another, that is, he is by no means the leader of the pride. Hunting is done by the females, as the weight of the males make them too slow to be very efficient. It is a mature, experienced female who leads the hunting, guiding the younger animals towards success. If by misfortune the leading female gets hurt, it may have dramatic consequences on the pride. Another female will have to quickly rise to the occasion. Failing to do so could mean starvation for all members of the pride, and this huge responsibility is not, I repeat, not given to the dominant male, even though he gets to eat first after a kill. So what about humans? Isn't it mind-blowing that animals are wise enough to make the decision not to trust the dominant ones and prefer experienced, respected leaders, and we, humans, fail to do so? Think about it. From an early age, some children just use others to get what they want, being it through bossing around or seducing others, children and adults alike. They often behave like small tyrants who can become quite aggressive when they don't get what they want. We can observe that same behavior in adults, sometimes very subtle and other times just flagrant. This Paleolimbic behavior, unfortunately, is often rewarded, as we tend to avoid conflict and confrontation, thus we let them have their way. This is exactly why authoritarian, dominant, aggressive Paleolimbic managers end up in key positions in organizations. As they move up in hierarchy, they ruthlessly play the game of internal politics to discredit potential contenders, and they usually get away with it. Their objective is not to improve the company as a whole, but to get personal privileges through social status, power, and higher income. They behave not differently than the male lion who comes for his share after a kill. They are only interested in their own position, and they will defend their territory as if their life depended on it. However, this is not leadership. This is dominance. You won't find a deer, nor elephant, dolphin, lion pride, wolf, buffalo, wildebeest, zebra, or giraffe to follow a dominant male. These animals follow other individuals based on their Neolimbic traits and skills. They trust them because they have shown they are capable and do care about the group, not because they're afraid they will get sacked or won't get their promotion, or because they are being forced in one way or another. Leadership is a very Neolimbic activity. It's primarily linked to the strategist personality, in combination with the innovator for vision, the competitor for fighting spirit, or the administrator for organization. There are higher goals involved, and its purpose is to elevate the others. Dominance is a pure Paleolimbic trait, where the other's only purpose is to serve the dominant's interests. Others get pushed down so the dominant one can rise. Now look at the world we live in. Where do you see leadership, and where do you see dominance? Look around you. How would you describe your boss? Or even better, look at yourself. Can you identify moments where you use dominance in order to get what you want? Don't forget, dominance is also about manipulation and seduction. I guess whenever we ask someone to do something, the true question should be, who will benefit the most from this? Depending on the answer, you will know if you're facing leadership or dominance. Our brain comes with some pre-installed programs that get activated under the right circumstances. The first set of programs I want to discuss here have to do with our survival instincts. The second set with our personality. Just like Windows is pre-installed on most computers, both sets of programs come standard with our hardware, our brain, and will get activated depending on our context. So let's start with the first one, our survival instincts. The strongest urge all living beings have is the one to survive as individuals but also as a species. During millions of years of evolution, evolving from Homo habilis over Homo erectus, etc., to become Homo sapiens, we inherited through our genes a whole set of behaviors and preferences which would keep us safe from harm, thus maximizing our chance of survival on this planet. When it comes to survival, there are really only two scenarios at hand. Or we're facing a danger, or we are safe. So there is the instinctive survival response when we're facing a threat, a danger. This is the well-known fight, flight, and fleeing response we saw earlier in the reptilian brain, which translates into stress. I won't cover how to deal with our own stress because I covered it in depth in my other courses. However, we will be looking at the impact of stress at work and how to deal with team members who are stressed. And then there's the other scenario. Our genetic programming not only covers the survival in moments of being under threat, but also when we are not. So what does it mean? Well, when it comes to the survival of the individual, in the absence of a clear and present danger, it really comes down to three subconscious survival programs. The first one is to avoid danger. The second one is to avoid starvation. The third program is not about the survival of the individual, but of the species, us humans as species. To this purpose, we've inherited two very powerful subconscious preferences, sex and nurturing. The second set of programs has to do with our personalities. We already covered part of that with the Neolimbic brain and the different leadership styles. Here, we will see how it shows in our team as well. So yes, personalities, of course. You see the link with leadership, but what about avoiding danger, avoiding starvation, and so on? How does it have anything to do with us leading a team? How does it affect us and how to deal with it? Well, the answers to all of these are to be found in the next lectures. In the previous section, we looked at the four structures in our brain and how our reptilian brain triggers three strategies to deal with the perceived danger. Depending on our personal sensibilities, our prior experience, and our immediate environment, of course. With immediate environment, I mean things, but also people. An unhappy customer, stressed out colleague, a boss who sees his team as galley slaves. Two things here I would like to point out. First, stress is what I like to call the first visually transmissible disease. Recent research shows that it's enough to see someone stressed out to start feeling stressed ourselves. The brain subconsciously jumps to the conclusion that if the person has perceived a danger, it might be a good idea to become more vigilant ourselves as well. Before we know, our adrenaline and cortisol levels start rising. The page for that is that if we as managers and leaders are trapped in the reptilian brain, becoming, as I explained before, a reptilian danger, we will affect our whole team and transmit the stress to them. Second point to understand is that we can be the main team, not only because we're stressed ourselves, but through our attitude, what I referred to before as being a dominant Paleolympic leader. Their management style is more commonly known as management by fear, threatening, intimidating, shouting, yelling, manipulating, harassing. It's a long list of tools that are being used by these managers. It's all about power. The only way the Paleolympic manager has found to rise above the others is by pushing the others down. Ridicule and humiliation, often disguised as humor, is their way to get the upper hand. When confronted with it, they go, "Come on, it's just a joke." Well, no, it's not. It's Paleolympic dominant behavior, and it's a major cause of stress, which can lead to burnouts and depression. The problem with this behavior is that it works. At least in the short term. As we will see in the lecture about avoiding danger, we're programmed to stay out of trouble. So when someone, our boss, is looking for trouble, we stay put. We keep a low profile. We just do as being told. But as I said, more about that in that other lecture. In this lecture, we will be looking at how to deal with stress of our teammates. I will be asking you to take a closer look at the people in your team and around you and how they react to stress, as we will be dealing with relational stress management, or RSM. First thing we should be aware of is the impact of stress on our team. For example, we often think a deadline can help us shake off inertia and focus on getting a job done. Now, brain research shows us precisely the opposite is true. A deadline, instead, more often limits our thinking and can lead to much worse decision-making. See, a tight deadline increases people urgency and stress levels. Reptilian brain is activated when, in order to be more productive and creative, we need our true brain to be active. Research shows us that the more stressful a deadline is, the less open we are to other ways of approaching a problem. It's important to understand how putting extra pressure on our team to get better results is mostly counterproductive. Remember, the only three ways our reptilian brain can react is by fleeing, fighting, or freezing. In other words, it will put us in a state of confusion, aggression, or demoralization. Quality of work will go down, interpersonal relations will deteriorate, and absenteeism will rise. Now, don't get me wrong, the problem is not the pressure. We're in a highly competitive world, and pressure is part of that. I'm not telling you we should create some kind of la-la land where there is no pressure whatsoever. The issue at hand is how we react to pressure. If it puts our team in one of the three stress responses, well, then we have a problem. So the objective is not to eliminate stress triggers, but to use the tools to help our team deal with stress in a better way. Meaning, how will we communicate and interact with our team to help them switch off our brain and switch on the prefrontal brain? This is what we're going to see in this chapter. It's quite exciting to see how we perfect with stress. Only making matters worse, for in the best case scenario, failing to have whatsoever on the person in front of us. Think about it for a moment. When we see someone with stress who's just walking nervously around or can't sit still, how do we react? How do you react? We'll often react to try and put them still or force them to sit down. And add to someone, "Look at me, I'm holding you." Does that sound familiar? Newsflash. The person in front of us is in fleet stress and isn't actually looking because the only thing he or she wants is to get out of there. Forcing them to look at us won't help him on our postures. It won't put us in stress. It's the same way when we're in stress. We have a tendency to attack. Attack is the defense, right? Well, not really. We'll only get worse. And two people in fight stress mode tend to escalate conflicts. Not a good idea if your objective is to get people to calm down. Regarding the first strategy, the freeze mode, think about what we do when we're trying to cheer up someone who's feeling depressed. We're trying to put things into perspective, using some humor maybe. Often we can see ourselves trying to instill some courage or willpower. "Come on, you can do it. Are you a man or a mouse?" Well, at that very moment, a person in freeze mode would rather be a mouse, especially if it's a hibernating one. So what should we do? Well, first, we should be able to recognize the different types of stress with others, as all three of them have different coping strategies, and applying the wrong one will fail to have impact or could even make matters worse. That's what we're going to see in the next lecture. Relational stress management. So let's have a look at each one of them. How to recognize them, what are the don'ts, and most importantly, what the do's are. RSM flee. Just observe these people for a couple of seconds. It's all about contained movement. They are all over the place. Watch each of them carefully and see how the flee mode has taken over. The biggest giveaway for all three strategies are the eyes. In the flee mode, the eyes are looking away. It's almost as if they are searching for an escape route. Clue number 2 are the hands and feet. Moving, fiddling, tapping, scratching, anything, as long as they can move. Repetitive movements are the most common. Finally, there's the fast breathing and sweating. Sweaty palms are very strong indications of flee stress. So what are the red flags? If your aim is to calm the person and move him or her out of that reptilian brain, it won't help to tell that person to calm down. Saying this will only be interpreted as a further restriction of freedom, which is exactly the opposite of what the flee response is aiming at. So avoid constraints or reasoning. No closed questions. A closed question is one where you can only answer by yes or no, or a couple of given options. If you ask someone in flee stress a closed question, the answer will most probably be an evasive one, something like, I don't know. Under constraints, you should also put aggression. Do not shout, threaten, or sanction. If you and your team are faced with a deadline that you're about to miss, it's highly counterproductive to remind your team of the negative consequences of missing that deadline. Unless you want them to stress even more, of course, which will most probably lead to mistakes and further delays. Same is true for judging and moralizing. It is highly counterproductive, so it's better to forget about it altogether. So what should we do? Well, exactly the opposite. If closed questions are a red flag, try the open questions. Show them they are free to choose. As they will have some trouble organizing their thought, you could help them with that by giving them some options. De-dramatizing the situation is highly effective. Putting things into perspective will help them realize that the situation at hand is not the end of the world. And I know of no better way than the use of humor to obtain just that. Laughter is the perfect emergency valve to blow off some steam. If possible, invite them to take a walk with you. Give a physical way out for that fleeing instinct. Whatever you do, remember that the flee stress is all about movement and escaping constraints. The fight stress is probably the easiest one to spot. People will stand tall, raise their voice, use strong, precise movements, showing patience. Tension builds up and shows in the neck and jaw, and their eyes are staring, squinting as not to lose sight of the enemy. Oh yes, the enemy. We're talking about fight mode, and to fight, you need to be two. What should we avoid here? Well, in fight mode, it's all about power. Trying to overpower the other by yelling harder won't improve the situation. Most likely, the argument will escalate with all the nasty consequences you can imagine. Don't undermine the show of authority that the person in fight stress is displaying. With this I mean, avoid to interrupt, question what is being said, or worst of all, laugh. In flee stress, laughter is bliss. In fight stress, it's a one-way ticket to a volcanic eruption that will make the Vesuvius look like a family homemade firework on New Year's Eve. Oh yes, and one last thing, don't annoy the person in fight stress. I already made my point about the use of humor. Try as well not to be slow. In fight stress, we show a remarkable lack of patience. Being slow will only trigger a stronger fight response. So what are we to do? Remember that to fight you need to be two. If you don't show any resistance, the fighting becomes futile and will fade away. First, listen without interruption. Then don't find excuses. If you did something wrong, admit it. Take responsibility. You shouldn't have done that. Well, okay, you're right. Yes, I shouldn't have. If you don't agree that you did something wrong, you can still work around it. And say things like, I'm sorry if what I did made you feel this way. That wasn't my intention. Another way to diffuse the anger is with something like, if I were you, I would be angry too. Say it with conviction. Show that you mean it. Now that the fighter has no one to fight with, explain what happened without looking for excuses, and finally offer solutions. As we saw before, the fight stress is impatient, so get to the point and be factual. Whatever you do, remember that the fight stress is all about overpowering and winning. You're the one who should pick your battles. Actually, only very little of them are worth fighting. Freeze. The first reaction of people to a perceived danger is often to literally stop moving, dropping jaws, or putting their hands in front of their mouth. This gesture is very powerful, as it stops the arrival of oxygen to our lungs. Welcome to the freeze mode. In freezing mode, the whole body is slowing down. Shoulders and head will be hanging. Again, the biggest giveaway are the eyes. They will be looking down, gazing at nothing in particular. Often, they will cover their face with their hands or sustain their head. You will notice that the person will lower its voice, talk slower, and use small sentences, less words. There will be desperate sighs and sometimes even tears. The whole attitude is submissive. There won't be any show of desire nor pleasure. At this point, a person with a normal energy level could have the tendency to almost literally shake up that person, to give him or her a wake-up call. The last thing a person in freeze mode wants is to be autonomous. On the contrary, its objective is to find protection, shelter, sharing, and caring. So telling them to get a grip, to be courageous, or showing some strength of character will only make them feel more miserable. So what can we do? Let's say you have a performance review with a team member who's underperforming because of private issues that affect his or her professional life. You find him completely demoralized. How do you react? If freezing mode is about finding protection, well, let's give him just that. First, understand. Mirror his pose. If he's sitting, sit. Is he hunching? Hunch as well. Put yourself literally on his level. Remember that this person won't be willing to talk, so respect that. Sometimes putting an arm around the shoulder does more than the most eloquent speech. Now, I mean this as a figure of speech, as I do realize that this might be not done in some settings. Remember that our objective is to get the other person out of the reptilian brain. To do so, we have to take away the perceived danger. In the freeze mode, this means to offer shelter, protection. Next step will be to define small objectives together. A first small step in the right direction. Guide him. Go along with him. Whatever you do, remember that the freeze stress is all about finding protection. And now some homework. I will ask you to go out there and look. Observe carefully. Look around you. Now you know there are 3 different types of stress. Can you figure out what stress reaction is most common with your colleagues? How do they react under pressure? So go out there, enjoy it, observe silently, do some small experiments. Once you're positive about the stress mode, try to help that person to switch brain structures, to move out of the reptilian brain. See how they react to you, then do it again and again. Get familiar with dealing with all 3 reactions. Relational stress management is quite easy, but at the same time more tricky than one would think. The tricky part is that some elements that are helpful in one strategy, like for example humor in flee mode, will be counterproductive in others, in this case the fight mode. Another difficulty is that one mode often triggers a stress response in the people around them. The different stress modes are not compatible with each other and only reinforce the stress reactions. For example, the attitude of a person in freeze or flee mode will annoy a person in fight mode, thus making him fight more, which again will make the other person flee or freeze even more. It's a vicious circle with seemingly no end. Last but not least, our stress reaction can change. We can jump back and forth between modes until we calm down. It is totally possible to have the full range of emotions within a couple of minutes. Imagine a traffic jam when you have a meeting coming up. First you become restless, trying to look for a way out. Then you get angry and start using your horn. Finally, you give up, whining that these things always happen to you. Sounds familiar? In essence, when we want to help someone calm down, we need to take the perceived danger away by demonstrating we are on their side. This is the common element in all 3 strategies. It will take away the need for a defensive reaction, and the stress response will fade away, putting the reptilian brain back in standby mode. From there onwards, we can start having a normal conversation, sort things out, do whatever needs to be done, but it's no use reasoning with stressed people, as the center of reasoning isn't located in the reptilian brain. we first need to bring the stressed person to leave the reptilian brain. So to summarize, when anxious, offer options. When aggressive, go with the flow. When helpless, give support. In the first part, we saw how our brain reacts to a perceived danger by activating our reptilian brain and choosing out of 3 possible survival instincts. What we're going to see now is how there exists an even better survival mechanism than classical flee, fight, or freeze we discussed before. It's of course good to know how to react when we're facing trouble. It's even better to avoid trouble altogether. You see, millions of years of evolution and natural selection has led to the genes of reckless and thrill-seeking individuals to be underrepresented. Why? Well, reckless individuals usually get into trouble, which hundreds of thousands of years ago would mean you would probably die, and thus be unable to pass your genes on to the next generation. Looking at this from the opposite direction, it means that most of us have an instinctive caution program running in the background that will make us stay safe, so we avoid injuries or bad encounters. This has far-reaching implications in our daily lives, without us even being aware of it. What follows is an overview of some of the consequences of this in a work environment. Resistance to change. Some time ago, with my company, Human Dimension, we launched a survey around the challenges managers were facing when dealing with their teams. We received an almost unanimous flow of response, all pointing towards the same challenge, which was change, or more exactly, resistance to change. In our fast-changing world, our brain's still wired to function in a prehistorical setting, constantly screening our surroundings for possible threats and avoiding bad encounters. One of the most effective survival strategies is to repeat what has been successful in the past. This turns us into creatures who like repetition, who like habits. Because if we've been doing an activity over and over, it means it's safe. This is the normal mode. This is what our brain is programmed to do. Now, when we as managers, as leaders, we ask our team to do things differently, our brain on a subconscious level is interpreting things as a possible threat. Change is a source of danger, of discomfort. It activates our reptilian brain and generates stress. One general manager of an SME told me once how change was vital to his organization and how he couldn't even get some employees to change desks. Now, of course, dealing with change is tricky and complex. One point I would like to highlight here, purely from a brain perspective, is that if you want your people to embrace change, you will have to get them out of their reptilian brain. Just as we saw earlier in this course, it's about taking the perceived danger away. We're not the enemy. We're here to help. We're on their side, remember? One way to do that is to get people out of their limbic system by having them think for themselves, give them the elements and let them draw the conclusions for themselves. Lack of initiative. Having a genetic predisposition to avoid danger has also an impact on the initiatives we're taking, or in this case, not taking, because initiative means doing things differently. It means taking risks, and risk is by definition a hazardous activity. So our brain will subconsciously have us avoid that kind of behavior. So with our team, if we want initiative, again, we need to take away the risk. Explicitly stating that no one will ever get in trouble because of trying something new is one good way to do it. The concept of a flop meeting is interesting here. A flop meeting is a meeting where you start a meeting and everyone shares something that went wrong the week before. The most juicy or funny story gets a reward, which can be something like a silly statuette or something. You know, just like a trophy you give every week to someone else. This way you take the drama out of initiatives going wrong, and it becomes an element of rally, of cohesion. Another way is to completely shift perspectives and actually start rewarding it, rewarding initiative taking. Now, rewards come in all sizes and shapes. I'm not necessarily talking money here. It could be about attention, public recognition, status. Make role models out of initiative takers. That will inspire the others. Need for repetition. I often have the same conversation with managers about how when they deliver a message about new policies, procedures, or strategic goals, they are baffled about how the message doesn't seem to stick. So the inevitable question is, how often should a message be repeated? What I usually answer is, as often as it needs to be. You see, in the same logic of avoiding danger, our brain is constantly looking to reassure itself. As our brain like habits and repetition, to a certain point it also needs it. You see, to our brain, what is repeated is true. What happens once can be an error, a mistake, a coincidence. The more it happens, the more our brain will internalize it and take it for granted. What this means is that we shouldn't expect our team to accept any change from the moment we communicate it to them. It's only through endless repetition over and over and over again that our people will accept changes, understand their consequences, and start to act differently. So yes, we have to repeat things over and over again. Some people say it takes 5 to come alive. Some studies go for 6 to 7 times is even better. My advice is to repeat it until it sticks, and even then, just to be sure, repeat it some more. Hurting. In the fight for survival, our ancestors quickly realized that sticking together was a successful strategy for making it to the next day. Not only was it useful to fight off possible predators or competing groups, others also became an indicator for safety. If you could see your fellow tribe members at a waterhole, it was a strong indication that that waterhole was safe, without lurking alligators or hungry lions nearby. If your fellow tribe members were eating some kind of new fruit or veggie and didn't show any poisoning symptoms, it was a fair assumption that that food was good for consumption. In other words, the others quickly became an indicator for safety. Following others was a good strategy for survival and for keeping us safe. It turned out to be so successful that evolution turned us into these deeply social beings who yearn for connection with others. We're constantly modeling our behavior to that of others around us, and it works both ways. Let's say we ask everyone at once in an organization to take a big leap, or even a small one for that matter. People are likely to fail to adapt, or just resist to the change, as they are naturally programmed to distrust new situations, and their lack of success becomes the social proof that the aspired change isn't working. Before you know it, the whole transition is a big farce. People are criticizing every aspect of it, and decision makers are trying to save face after looking at this debacle. As leaders, we need to be aware of this and turn this knowledge to our advantage. Whenever we ask our people to walk new paths, we should use what is known as social proof. We should show others did it before them. When we want to instill change, it is far more effective to start with early adopters, get them excited, then show their successful adaptation to others and gain momentum. Before you know it, people themselves will be asking you to switch to the new thing, whatever it is that you're trying to put into place. And worst case scenario, if it isn't working, you'll only have affected a handful of employees instead of your whole team, department, or organization. So yes, the first one of the genetic programs we have inherited through millions of years of evolution is the one to keep us safe, to avoid danger. In order to do so on a subconscious level, we're often not very helpful. We like to stick to our little habits and show resistance to change. We show a remarkable lack of initiative. We need to have things be repeated over and over again. And last but not least, we have a strong tendency to go where others go, to do as others do. So knowing this, as leaders, we can turn that to our advantage. We can play into that need for avoiding danger by proactively dismantling the perception of the possible threats our teams might have, by being on their side, by rewarding initiative taking, by repeating our message over and over again, and by creating momentum through early adopters. So now it's time for the second survival instinct. This one could be seen as a subcategory of the first one, to avoid danger, as we saw in the previous lecture. Here, this one is all about avoiding You heard that right, starvation, as in dying from not eating. For hundreds of thousands of years, especially in a hostile environment where food isn't present in abundance, this has been a real challenge. I'm not even talking about deserts here or how to survive winter or long periods of drought. It's more basic than that. It's about getting by the fluctuation of going a couple of days without food because of an unsuccessful hunt or not finding fruit and veggies close by. Having no food to eat is a liability that can have disastrous consequences. So in the same way we have developed these instincts to keep us safe, we also have developed instincts to keep us from starving. Interestingly enough, studies have shown that the whole food and starvation concept nowadays has been replaced by money. Yes, we will be strongly drawn towards everything related to getting more of it, or as a variation, spending less of it. Another variation of the money theme is power. Our lust for both of them has proven to be insatiable over the course of history. The corporate world has known this for ages. Work and you will get money. Salary is solely aimed at answering the call of this primal survival instinct to avoid starvation, and has been seen as a great motivator. Now it turns out money, or avoiding starvation, is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, if you don't give enough of it, you will put them into a state of necessity, which activates the Paleolympic brain, and forces them into submissiveness. We know by now that as the Paleolympic is active, people forced into submissiveness are into manipulation, and the what's in for me attitude. They'll grab whatever they can and quickly turn into passive-aggressive actors who will boycott you because of their frustration and resentment. So deliberately putting them there might not be the best move. On the other hand, give too much of it and you'll generate greedy, ego-tripping narcissists with a sense of entitlement that will make working with them almost impossible. Basically, in their brain is the Paleolympic taking over and putting them into dominance stance. A study from Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton wanted to know up to which point our emotional well-being was improved by higher income. You know the eternal question, does more money make us more happy? Turns out it does, but up to a certain point. They found a strong increase in happiness linked to higher income up to a certain level of it, after which additional income had no impact anymore on emotional well-being, regardless of how much more they were earning. Interestingly, the researchers were able to put a figure on it. Of course, this figure is not the same everywhere, as it is linked to the standard of living, but still, in the United States, that benchmark was a household income of $75,000. So what does it all mean for us? It's fair to say that when it comes to earnings, the best way to deal with it is just to get it out of the way. We need to pay our people decently so they don't shift into Paleolympic mode and activate the avoid starvation program. And we don't have to pay them too much either, as it is just a waste of company resources. They won't be happier because of it, or work harder. And if they do, you might be triggering some type of obsessive behavior around money or work, which is usually a highway to burnout. So either way, you're on thin ice. So yes, pay your people decently so the matter is just off the table and focus on the job itself. If we're talking sustainable motivation, people shouldn't be working to avoid starvation or to make more money. It should be about the job itself, what they're doing and their love for it. Last but not least of the survival instincts I wish to discuss here is the one about procreation. Sex and nurture, if you will. Interestingly enough, this one is not about personal survival, but the survival of the race, of our species. Nature has embedded in us this extremely powerful program, just to make sure we wouldn't get extinct as a species. So no wonder both sex and nurturing have extensively been used in advertising and movies to get all our chemicals and neurotransmitters fire away and have us bond with the product or story. Anyway, what do sex and nurture have to do with us as leaders? Well, as there aren't that many babies on the work floor, and I'm not talking about mental age here, let's focus on sex for now. Sex is in the realm of the limbic amygdala, activating both the reptilian and the Paleolympic brain. It's very primal, instinctive, territorial. Because of that, sex is power. Seduction is a game of influence and manipulation. We need to be aware of that. Both men and women use it. It's very effective, but it's manipulative. In essence, when in Paleolympic dominance mode, we're using the other person for personal gain. Others aren't seen as people anymore, but as a tool to get what we want. Flirting, as innocent as it may seem, should trigger all our alarm systems. We should activate our prefrontal brain and analyze the situation. Start asking ourselves what the flirting person is trying to gain here. But even without flirting, we should be on our guards. So yes, we are attracted to beauty. Little are we aware that we are immediately and purely instinctively scanning the people we meet as potential mating partners. It's not a conscious process. It all happens below the surface. In just seconds, we make up our mind if we, yes or no, potentially spend the night with them. Not that we actually would or even have a shot. That's not a consideration. This is not about reality. It's not either about having sexual fantasies with strangers, no. It's just our instincts informing us that gene pool looks like healthy and would be a worthwhile investment for our chromosomes. Now combine this with the halo effect. The halo effect describes the tendency to use global evaluations to draw conclusions about specific traits. This means that when we find someone, let's say good looking, as with our example of the healthy gene pool, we will automatically assign other characteristics to that person as well. For example, likable and trustworthy. The benefits of making a good first impression on one trait, as superficial as being good looking, has repercussions on other traits as well. The brain, lazy as it is, does what it likes to do. It starts jumping to conclusions. As he or she has a great smile, he or she must be well-mannered, have a good education, be trustworthy, and before we realize it, we're assessing this person's merits as a future business partner or colleague based on looks alone. Now be aware, it works both ways. Lesser looks can have a lasting negative impact on all kinds of future interactions, and even stop us from hiring someone. That is, if our Paleolympic brain is taking the decisions here. Hence the importance of activating our prefrontal brain. We should keep a critical mind, especially when we feel attracted to someone. Putting in place SOPs or standard operating procedures regarding hiring, firing, appraisal meetings, giving feedback, and even running meetings will help us stay as neutral and professional as is expected from us in a leading role. When we're talking about our genetic program, the first thing we think about are our parents for a pretty obvious reason. Yes, we are the result of a creative combination of two gene pools colliding into a unique set of DNA string. There are no two of us on Earth, unless you have an identical twin somewhere or have been cloned. Okay, anyway, you get the point. But even then, we'll end up unique. You see, the genetic program will ensure we've got 2 arms and 2 legs, all the biological setup we need. Besides that, it also gives us a blueprint for our personalities. Again, defined as a randomized result of both our parents' blueprints. But it doesn't mean we'll end up being like our parents, handpicking some features from daddy and some more from mummy. You see, once the genetic blueprint is formed, only parts of it will get activated based on our surrounding, the environment we'll end up in. A firstborn will get more attention from his or her parents, resulting in a different activation than, just to take an extreme and dramatic example, a baby who ends up in an orphanage. Studies on identical twins separated at birth gave us great insights in this matter. 2 kids with an identical genetic program, when set in a different environment, will develop different personalities. Combine that with neuroplasticity, the fact that our brain continues to evolve, change and adapt all through adulthood, and you end up realizing that who we are is not set in stone. We are the ever-changing result of the combined sum of all of our experiences so far. I'm telling you all this for you to realize that what is coming next is actually more of a fetish of some recruiters and trainers than an actual thing. I'm talking personality profiles here. I'm not going to single any of them out. Many of them are based on the work of Jung. Personally, I'm a big fan of Jung, but let's not forget his main work dates back to before the 1920s. In general, personality profiles are based on the premise that who we are is fixed and that we'll respond to situations in a predictable manner. So we're being assigned numbers or colors or a variation of those. The thing is, we know now that that view is a blatant oversimplification of things. The way we react is partially based on our personality, partially on our prior experiences, and finally on the situation we're in. And most importantly, as a result of new experiences, our reactions can evolve. So trying to find out what personality profile we have or our team members have and then draw conclusions out of that, or even a whole human resources approach and strategy, well, that's pretty much bound to completely miss its target, as you won't be measuring what you think you are. It's an honorable attempt to doing the right thing, but it's far from doing the things right. Having said all that, I will still present you a model for personalities. It's the one I was basing myself upon for the typology around leadership styles. The central idea behind it is that these 8 archetypes do not exist in isolation. Every one of us is a combination of 2 to 4 of these archetypes. Here we're talking intrinsic or primary motivations as a base for our personalities. For an activity to be counted as a primary motivation, it needs to respond to 3 characteristics. First, the activity itself gives us joy. We don't even need to be good at it. Results don't count here. There's the sheer pleasure of doing it. Let's take singing, for example. Myself, I love singing, but I'm really just an average singer. Still, I love singing in my car, in my shower, or even make a total fool of myself at karaoke. Second, doing the activity gives energy. It's something that fills us, and we could easily go on and on forever. Last but not least, this activity will remain intrinsic for our entire life. If we enjoyed singing when we were 6, we will still enjoy it when we'll be 60. It's not something that fades over time. Now think about your team and try to spot which type goes with who. Funny part is, it's usually easier to spot intrinsic motivations and personality traits in others than in ourselves. So let's start. The philosopher. Keywords here are optimism, curiosity, consensual. These employees enjoy the simple life. They are flexible and can easily adapt to new challenges, but no pressure. They're usually stress-free, do things at their own pace. They like to involve their team members and discuss items with them. They do well in stressful environments, where their calming presence has a positive influence on others. The innovator. With the innovative employee, obviously the focus is on innovation, abstraction, theories. They enjoy complexity, interdisciplinarity. Having to develop new models, they are always a step ahead, already thinking about the next big breakthrough, when you are still in awe with the current one. They do great in research and development departments or any department with its share of conceptualization. The animator. With the animator, you're in for a ride. These employees thrive in a dynamic environment and strong sensation. They love all the attention they can get. Just like the innovator, they are very creative and have plenty of new ideas, but don't ask them to work them out in details, as that is way too boring for them. As said, they like an ever-changing environment, a multitude of projects, often very diverse. Put them somewhere in the spotlight and they will love you for it. Let them give presentations, for example, or put them in sales. They do well in first impressions, and their natural charisma will help them gain both trust and new deals. Or consulting, of course. The constant change of environment will feel natural to them. The administrator. Here, playtime is over. The Neolimbic administrator is about the administration and safety. We're talking financial control, planning, tools, Excel sheets, reporting, and so on. These employees are at their best in a number environment. They get a thrill out of procedures. Put them in a finance, insurance, or accounting environment, and they will love you for it. They're also great when it comes to safety and prevention. They will be scrupulous about complying the rules and remind everyone to do the same. The strategist. Forget the numbers, here comes the champion of the people. These natural-born leaders are both loyal to their organization and their team. Their natural tendency for harmony balance will draw them to mediate and actively solve problems if they arise. Great at organizing and coordinating, they will entrust their team, delegate tasks, empower their people, give training when necessary in order to unlock hidden potential. They will stand with their team, support them, make them grow, and find the best in each and every single one of them. So HR is a good place for them. They're also great middle managers, and as they also excel in coordination and organization, this means logistics, even administration or event planning. The competitor. With a competitive employee, whatever you ask from them, don't make it too easy. If they don't have to fight over something, that thing isn't worth having. A victory has to be earned, conquered. It's the cult of the hero that dominates everything. They're not afraid of getting their hands dirty, as long as it's a challenge and not anyone could do it. Make sure to treat them differently. They like a special status. They don't need more than others, just different, privileges. Competitors do great in a competitive environment. Yeah, I know, it's kind of redundant. So give it to them. Sales will sell for sure, but also restructuring or short-term projects with concrete objectives will do. The participative personality. Welcome to business with a human face. Remember that old sitcom, Cheers, and the song that went, Where Everybody Knows Your Name? Well, that is the ultimate dream setting for a Neolimbic participative employee. He or she is a perfect team player. They know everybody by name, but probably also the name of their partner, kids, and even the pets of the other employees. They will do whatever it takes for the team. They'll listen, support, train, encourage. They thrive in an environment on a human scale. HR, training, coaching are great departments for them. The supportive personality. The Neolimbic supportive employee is a portrait of the selfless employee. Their sole purpose is to serve others. The team is more important than themselves. They are the ultimate altruist, demanding for themselves and tolerant towards others. Discreet, they will operate below the surface, helping others shine and always avoiding the spotlights for themselves. Put them somewhere where they can help others. Back office, reception, customer service. That will give them purpose and fulfillment. So these are the 8 personality types. Remember, no one is only one of these. We are all a combination of 2 to 4 of them. Now look at your team. Have you been able to identify at least one dominant personality trait for each of them? Now think about how you can use that information to make their role, their jobs more fulfilling. Try to adapt their job description to fit their personality some more. Give them responsibilities which are in line with their natural primary motivations, and you'll see their engagement skyrocket.
So this brings us to the end of the first set of subconscious programs active in our brain, the genetic programming.
As we saw, our individual survival instincts go a long way to make sure we stay out of trouble. And if we do face trouble, we maximize our chances of getting out alive. We had a look at our flight, fight, and freeze response and how to deal with that when our team members are under stress. We also looked at how our survival instincts are continuously pushing us to stay safe, with programs such as avoid danger and avoid starvation. We saw how our sex and nurture urges can be kept in check, so to avoid manipulation and power games on the work floor. Avoiding danger pushes us to unconsciously resist to change, lack initiative, need repetition, and follow others, or hurting. And we saw how we could take advantage of this knowledge to improve our communication with our team. With avoiding starvation, we saw how the whole money and wage issue is best to be dealt with heads-on, right from the start, so we can focus on what really matters, the job itself. Talking about the job itself, that's where we looked at our different personality archetypes and how identifying them with our team members. We can start tweaking their job description to better fit their personality types. This will obviously directly impact their job satisfaction and thus improve their overall commitment and engagement. All of this genetic programming is quite peculiar, as none of it is conscious. Well, it can become conscious once we're made aware of it, but mostly we're just being triggered, and stress just happens, just like resistance to change, hurting, or flirting, or enjoying whatever we're doing once we're in our primary personalities. In the next chapter and set of lectures, we'll take another perspective, as we'll start from our conscious prior experience, which over time have often become subconscious influences of our behavior.